Have you ever been in the middle of an argument and caught yourself thinking, wait, why am I not more upset about this? Or maybe you've watched someone you love make the same painful choice over and over, and you said something gently, carefully, and they looked at you like you'd accuse them of a crime they didn't commit. Or maybe that person was you. There's a version of your mind that is working around the clock, every single day, to protect you from feelings that feel too big, too inconvenient, or too honest to face directly. It's not a flaw. It's not weakness. It's one of the most sophisticated things the human brain does. And most of us have no idea it's even happening. What I'm describing is something Sigmund Freud called defense mechanisms. And while psychology has updated a lot of Freud's work, this concept has held up. It's been refined by ego psychology, studied in therapy for over a century, and it still shows up in session rooms every single day. The basic idea is this. When reality feels threatening, your mind finds a detour. The quiz you're about to take is built around 4 of the most common ones. Here's how this works. I'm going to walk you through 8 scenarios, real moments from real life. For each one, you'll choose the response that feels most like you. It might not be the response you're proud of. That's kind of the point. Your options are A, B, C, or D. Grab something to write with and jot down each letter as you go. At the end, the letter you chose most often reveals your dominant defense style. And before we begin, this is for self-reflection and entertainment. It is not a diagnosis, and it does not define your whole personality. Okay, let's go. Before we start, could you please subscribe and hit the like button so we can bring you more tests? Thank you. We have added a timer so you can see your progress. Let's start. Question 1. Your doctor calls with test results that are not great, nothing life-threatening, but it's going to require real lifestyle changes. No more of the food you love, a medication you didn't want, and a follow-up appointment you've been dreading. You hang up the phone and your first move is A. You put the phone down and think, I'll deal with this later. You feel strangely calm, almost like the call didn't happen. You go back to whatever you were doing before. B. You immediately text your best friend to tell them that their eating habits are worse than yours, and they should really get checked out too. C. You start researching the condition online and build a mental case for why the doctor might be overreacting. By the end of the night, you've found 3 reasons this probably isn't as serious as they made it sound. D. You feel the wave of anxiety, and then you lace up your shoes and go for a run. Longer than usual. Something about moving your body feels like the only honest response right now. Question 2. You find out that a close friend got a promotion you both wanted. You genuinely like this person. You also feel something sharp and uncomfortable in your chest. What happens next? A. You congratulate them warmly, and honestly, you mostly feel fine. The uncomfortable feeling fades pretty quickly. You tell yourself it wasn't the right role for you anyway, and you kind of believe it. B. Over the next few weeks, you notice yourself pointing out your friends' flaws more often. Not to hurt them, just you start seeing things you didn't notice before. Their insecurity, their people-pleasing. You mention it to a mutual friend. C. You start mentally cataloging all the ways you were more qualified. By the end of the week, you've built a tight, logical argument for why the process was unfair, and you feel significantly better. D. You channel the feeling into something. Maybe you finally sign up for that course you've been putting off. Maybe you start working on a project you've been avoiding. The sting becomes fuel. Question 3. You and your partner have the same argument you've had before. It doesn't get resolved. You go to bed in silence. At 2 in the morning, when you're still awake, your mind goes to A. Honestly. Nothing much. You're not sure why you can't sleep. You feel kind of blank. You tell yourself you'll feel better in the morning and try to think about something else. B. How much of this is actually about them? Their communication style, their avoidance. If they would just change this one thing, everything would be different. C. A careful, organized replay of the argument. You identify the logical misstep. You know exactly where the conversation went wrong. You feel better once you've pinpointed it. D. You make a mental note to call your therapist in the morning, or write about it, or do something with the feeling rather than let it sit. You don't know what yet, but you know you need an outlet. You are halfway there. Take a breather, and we will start the last 4 questions. Also, a perfect time to subscribe and hit the like button. Question 4. You've been passed over for an opportunity at work. Again, your manager gives you vague feedback. You walk out of the meeting and head back to your desk. In the next hour, you A. Open your laptop and just get back to work. Your emails suddenly feel very important. You're not suppressing anything, you're just focused. You tell yourself it's fine, and part of you actually believes it. B. Start noticing how often your colleagues talk about themselves, how much air they take up in meetings, how the person who did get the opportunity always knows how to play politics. It bothers you more than it did before. C. Quietly build a case. You identify the systemic issues at your company. You write a mental memo. By the end of the day, you have a fully developed explanation for why this says nothing about you and everything about your workplace. D. Decide this is the sign you needed. You open a new document and start working on something that's entirely yours. A proposal, a side project, an application somewhere else. The rejection becomes a starting gun. Question 5. A family member brings up something painful from your past at a gathering. Casually, like it's a funny story. It is not a funny story. Everyone laughs. You smile. And then, A. Move on. You feel a little off for the rest of the evening, but you can't quite name why. By the time you get home, you've talked yourself into believing it wasn't a big deal. It was a long time ago. You're fine. B. Find yourself being slightly more critical of that family member for the rest of the night. Their outfit, their taste in music. Something about them is suddenly very irritating, and you're not totally sure when it started. C. Think later about how they probably didn't mean it that way. You construct the most generous possible interpretation. You also draft in your head a very calm and reasonable explanation of why that memory is more complicated than they made it sound, just in case anyone asks. D. Feel the sting and almost immediately think about how you might write about this later, or talk about it with someone safe, or create something that processes what just happened. The hurt doesn't disappear, but it goes somewhere useful. Question 6. You've been putting off a difficult conversation with a friend for weeks. Today they texted you asking if everything is okay. You know this is your opening. You A. Reply. Yeah, totally fine. Just been busy. And then close the app and genuinely feel sort of, okay. You're not sure if you're avoiding it or if you've just moved past it. Maybe both. You'll deal with it eventually. B. Find yourself irritated by the text itself. Something about the way they worded it feels passive-aggressive. You're not sure you're ready to talk when they're the one who started this whole thing, honestly. C. Draft a very thoughtful, well-structured reply that addresses the surface-level question, while carefully avoiding the actual issue. It's not dishonest. It's just precise. You reread it 3 times before sending. D. Take a breath, open the conversation and say, "Can we talk soon? There's something I've been sitting with." You don't have it all figured out, but you know that holding it is starting to cost you something. Question 7. You're at a party and someone says something that lands like a quiet insult, wrapped in a compliment, the kind of thing that stings, but that you couldn't explain to anyone without sounding oversensitive. For the rest of the party, A. You're your normal self. You laugh at the right moments. You have a fine time. But when you get home and someone asks how it was, you say, fine, and realize you can't remember much of it. B. You're watching that person more closely than you were before. Their confidence starts to read as arrogance. Their popularity starts to read as performance. You share a quick observation about them with someone nearby. Nothing cruel, just accurate. C. You quietly construct a reason why the comment was actually irrelevant. By the end of the party, you've decided the person who said it probably has their own insecurities, and the comment was a deflection. You feel fine, actually fine. D. You carry the feeling out of the party with you and do something with it on the drive home. Play a song that matches the mood, talk it out with whoever you came with, or make a mental note to journal about it later. The discomfort gets directed somewhere it can breathe. Question 8. You realize you've made a significant mistake at work, in a relationship, in a decision that can't be undone. The kind of mistake you'll think about at 3 a.m. In the hours after you realize it, A. You feel a wave of something, and then it flattens. You're oddly calm. You think, what's done is done. You go about your day. You'll probably think about this more later. Just not right now. B. You find yourself thinking about the circumstances around the mistake, the pressure you were under, the way other people handled their part. You're not making excuses. You're just putting it in context, a lot of context. C. You analyze what happened with almost surgical precision, what led to it, what you would do differently, how you'll make sure it doesn't happen again. By the time you're done, you feel not good, but organized, orderly, in control of the story. D. You sit with the guilt because you know it means something, and then you redirect. You write an apology. You start researching how to do better. You let the mistake become motivation in the most honest way you can manage. All right, pencils down. Count up your letters, whichever one appears most often. That's your type. If you're split between two, you're a blend, which tells you something interesting on its own. Take one breath. Here come your results. If you chose mostly A's, type name, the quiet shelter, the mirror, you have one of the most remarkable capacities in the room, the ability to remain functional when other people would fall apart. When pain arrives, you don't make a scene of it. You carry it quietly and keep going, and the people around you often have no idea what you're holding. There's a genuine grace in this. You are dependable, steady, and almost unnervingly calm in a crisis. People come to you when things fall apart precisely because you don't. The blind spot, the protective layer that keeps you functional, can also keep you somewhere just slightly outside your own life. The technical term for what your mind does is denial, not delusion, not ignorance, but a kind of gentle suspension of the full emotional weight of things. The cost is that feelings you don't process still find you, often in the body, tension, fatigue, a restlessness you can't name, or in patterns you can't quite explain. You don't ignore pain, you relocate it. And relocated pain doesn't disappear. It sends postcards. The growth tip. This week, try this. When something happens that you immediately shrug off as fine, pause for 30 seconds before moving on. Don't perform emotion you don't feel. Just ask yourself, is there anything here I'm not looking at? That's it. A 30-second check-in. In psychodynamic work, even the smallest moment of honest awareness creates a crack of light that the usual pattern doesn't. If you chose mostly B's, type name, the mirror turned outward. The mirror. You are someone with a finely tuned emotional radar. You feel things intensely and with extraordinary specificity. You notice what others miss, sense what people aren't saying, and experience the world with a richness that can be as exhausting as it is beautiful. Your emotional intelligence is real. Your capacity for empathy runs deep. When you're in your clearest moments, you are someone people feel seen by because you genuinely see them. The blind spot. The defense mechanism at play here is called projection, and it's a deeply human thing. When a feeling is too uncomfortable to sit with as your own, it becomes easier to locate it in someone else. Their arrogance, their insecurity, their problem. It doesn't mean you're wrong about what you see in others. You often aren't. But the intensity of what bothers you in someone else is usually proportional to how much it lives in you too. The things we most quickly assign to other people are often the things we're most afraid to claim as ours. The growth tip. This week, try this. The next time you find yourself getting genuinely, disproportionately annoyed by someone else's behavior, pause and ask, where does this live in me? You don't have to like the answer. You don't even have to be certain it's true. But sitting with the question for 2 minutes is one of the most honest and transformative things psychodynamic therapy asks of people. It is not comfortable. That's how you know it's working. Before we go on to C, please hit that subscribe button so we can bring you more of these quizzes. If you chose mostly C's, type name. The architect of reason, the mirror. Your mind is genuinely impressive. You process fast, you organize complexity intuitively, and when the world goes sideways, you don't panic. You analyze. You are someone who finds order in chaos, who can locate the logic in a situation that has everyone else spinning, and who rarely, if ever, lets raw emotion run the show. In a crisis, you are invaluable. You are also probably the person who reads about psychology in your spare time, which is why this quiz appealed to you in the first place. The blind spot. What you use is called rationalization, and it's one of the most sophisticated defense mechanisms there is, precisely because it's almost impossible to argue with. You don't deny reality. You explain it. The explanation is usually intelligent, often partially true, but the function it serves is the same as any other defense. It keeps the full emotional weight of the experience at a safe distance. The cost of being the most rational person in the room is that sometimes you intellectualize your way out of your own feelings before you've had a chance to actually feel them. You solve the emotion instead of experiencing it. The growth tip. This week, try this. When you notice yourself building a case about a situation, internally explaining it, contextualizing it, organizing it into a narrative, ask yourself, what would I feel about this if I couldn't think my way out of it? You don't have to abandon the analysis, but let the feeling arrive first, even just for a moment. In psychodynamic work, this is called tolerating affect, and for natural rationalizers, it's the hardest and most rewarding thing to practice. If you chose mostly D's, type name, the Alchemist, the mirror. There is something quietly remarkable about the way you move through difficulty. When something hurts, you feel it, fully, honestly, and then you do something with it. You turn grief into creativity, anger into momentum, fear into action. This is what Freud called sublimation. And it's considered the most adaptive defense mechanism of all because it doesn't actually hide the feeling. It transforms it. Your running shoes, your journal, your creative work, your drive. These aren't escapes from your emotional life. They are expressions of it. The blind spot. Sublimation is healthy, genuinely. But even the most adaptive pattern has edges. The risk for you is that the doing can become its own kind of avoidance. When you're always channeling, always creating, always moving, there may not be much space left to simply sit with something and let it exist without being converted into something useful. Not every feeling needs a product. Sometimes pain just needs to be witnessed. If the only emotions you have room for are the ones you can transform, you may be quietly editing out the ones that most need your attention. The growth tip. This week, try this. When something hard happens, and your instinct is to immediately create or move or produce, pause, just for 10 minutes. Sit with the feeling before you do anything with it. You can still make the run or write the piece afterward, but give the feeling the dignity of existing, unproduced, for a little while first. This is the one growth edge that most high-functioning, creative, emotionally intelligent people resist the hardest, and the one that makes the most difference. Here's what I keep coming back to. Your mind has been doing this your whole life, protecting you, buying you time, helping you survive rooms and relationships and moments that were a lot to hold. None of these patterns are wrong. They were solutions before you knew the question. The only question now is whether the solution still fits the life you're actually living. Leave a comment and finish this sentence for me. The feeling I find hardest to sit with is, I read every single one. This has been an inner choice adventure. Until next time, the path you take always tells you something. Pay attention to which one you choose.